Hello, and welcome to Jolineknitsalot. This is my show about knitting and crafting and the things I get up to here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. All of the leaves fell off the trees last weekend. Okay, maybe not all of them, but a lot of the trees leaves have now fallen. I think we might have gotten a frost. And so it's starting to feel like winter is coming. But I live in Canada, winter is always coming. But it makes for fun walks with the dog. We trundle through the leaves and kick them and crunch them, right? Mr. Blue is sitting just off camera here with me as my co-producer and executive assistant, as always. What have you been up to? How are things in your neck of the woods? We celebrated Thanksgiving last weekend. In Canada, Thanksgiving is the second weekend in October, and we celebrate the harvest. So it's a little ironic because I have a brother-in-law who's a farmer, and he often can't make it to Thanksgiving dinner because he's too busy harvesting. So it is what it is. We have a lovely family get-together for Thanksgiving. Generally, we go to visit my parents, and my mom makes a huge dinner. It's a lot like what you might think of for Thanksgiving. We have turkey, we also have ham and meatballs, we have dressing and mashed potatoes and salads and all sorts of foods. And my mom always makes pumpkin pie and apple pie, and inevitably we get to go home with a whole pie of each. So we celebrated Thanksgiving with my parents, my sister and her family, minus my brother-in-law who was harvesting, and my brother and his family, minus my one nephew who is currently going to school in Ontario. So it was a really great time. I really love those family get-togethers. We get to sit around and laugh and enjoy each other's company. So that was really great. And I'm very grateful for my family. So that was last weekend. And the last couple of weeks, I've just been puttering around on different projects, but it's come to my attention that Christmas is coming quickly, and so I've had to think a little bit about what things I'm going to be making for Christmas in terms of gifts this year, and also what things I'm going to be baking for Christmas, because if you know me, you know that I enjoy Christmas baking quite a bit, and I try to plan my baking so that I'm doing a little bit at a time, and I fill my freezer with baking so that in the holiday season when people stop in, I have lots of treats to share. So I'll tell you a little bit about some of the things that I have been planning or thinking about for the holiday season at the end of the year. So stick around and we will talk about all of those things. However, you may have noticed that I did manage to finish my Frame Your Face Cowl. This is a pattern by Andrea Mowry. It came out this year. It's sort of an accompanying pattern to the framed, is that right? Sweater, which is the Rhinebeck sweater this year. I didn't think that the framed sweater was for me, partly because it is worsted weight stranded colorwork sweater, and that just seems pretty heavy to me. So when the Frame Your Face Cowl came out, I thought that sounds like a really great alternative. Now this is one of Andrea Mowry's cowls that is knit in a tube, and then you seam it. My seam is back here. I don't know if you can see it, right here. And you add a twist. Now, I've never done a cowl like this, and I think I did the twist right. But what that little twist does is gives you a nice little place for your chin, I think. So you can see that this is where that twist happens, and then it sits nicely around your face. Bless you. So this is the Frame Your Face Cowl. I used leftover Durarum Natura Ulisse, which is fast becoming my favorite sport weight yarn. It's a beautiful, lovely, lofty yarn, and I used it in this deep gray color called Granite. And then the contrasting color is some hand spun that I picked up at the Prairie Fiber Festival, I want to say last year. And it was hand spun by Nomad Fiberworks called Hot Mess. So I do find that the pattern for me, actually, if I look at it like this, it's not too bad, but it's not the most obvious pattern. One of Andrea Mowry's samples was knit in black and white, and I think that's probably, that high contrast really makes sorry, my dog is just trying to get comfortable. I think it really makes the pattern stand out, but I'm really happy with how this turned out. I've never knit a cowl in this sort of style where you knit a tube, so it's double. It's doubled, it's essentially a double fabric. So it sits nicely around your neck. You don't have to fuss with it because it just sits there. It doesn't go anywhere. And you can fit your jacket around it and it'll sit nicely within your jacket. So I'm looking forward to wearing this winter. I think it'll be great. So this is the Frame Your Face Cowl. I have one other project off my needles, and that is some spooky socks. These are the Colorworks Cuff Club socks for October, one of the patterns. This is a fantastic club by Summerlee, and if you've watched this channel before, you know that I'm a big fan of Summerlee. She designs all sorts of different socks, but this year, starting in August, she started the Colorwork Cuff Club, and some months you get one colorwork chart to insert into some socks, and some months you get two. There were two in October, but I've decided to only knit the one with little ghosts. Now I did choose yarns that are essentially the same as her sample. So this is Knit Pick Stroll in the Dogwood Heather colorway. I picked up a few skeins of this in my stash, so you probably see this being used over and over. And then these little ghosts are knit with some West Yorkshire spinners. And the black sections are Knit Pick Stroll Glimmer. So it's supposed to have a little bit of shimmer to it, and you can, I think, just about see the glimmer. It's not super obvious, but it was the black yarn that I had, so I thought that would do. And now I need to get these on my feet because these are just perfect for this time of year. These are some very sweet socks, and I'm really happy that I took the time to work on my color work, because for my first sock, which I think is this one, my stranded color work is a little bit looser. This section right here, where I was using a bigger needle prior to switching to the smaller needle, was just a little bit looser. So on the second sock, I tried to pay a bit more attention, and I feel like my tension was a little bit better. I mean, they're not perfect, but we live and learn, and I think they're very sweet socks. And now I'm kind of looking forward to the November pattern coming out. So those are the two projects that I have off my needles this week. I have been working away on a couple of projects, as you would expect. One of them is a bigger project, so it's a sweater, and I have been working away at it in pieces. You'll see. It's kind of hard to show because of the order that I'm knitting things in. And the other thing that I've been working on is a pair of socks. This is kind of my normal. I tend to have a bigger project that I can work on at home, and then a smaller project that is more portable that I can take with me when I go out and about. So first I'll show you the sweater. This is the Sunset Sweatshirt. It's a pattern by Jessie Made Designs, and I do enjoy her patterns. The layout and the way that she writes the patterns is very clever, and she's very skilled, I think, at using short rows to create shaping in her sweaters. So let me just show you what I have on the needles. It may be hard to see some of the things, and as I finish more of the sweater, I think some of the aspects of the sweater or features that she's put into the pattern will become, I think, more obvious. But this is the sweater as it is. I started knitting this sweater, it is knit from the top down, and I started knitting it using 2 balls of yarn and alternating every other row. And the reason I did that was because a lot of these sections are knit back and forth. I was alternating because I wanted to make sure I didn't have any pooling happening, or like very obvious marks where I switched from one skein to another. So you can see from the top down, and maybe the lighting isn't great because it's not quite that bright of a reddy burgundy color, but I think that in this lighting you can see that there is variation in the yarn. I'm using the Spinster's Daughter worsted. So this is a yarn that is spun by Spin Cycle, the lovely ladies in Washington State. And then it's dyed by the Farmer's Daughter Fibers. So it's sort of a collaboration, and this is the worsted weight version of that collaboration. I started from the top down and I knit the back portion as the pattern tells you, and then you pick up some stitches here and you work the front section. You can maybe see from this shoulder, these shoulders, that there is some short row shaping, and that creates kind of a sloped shoulder here. There's a bit of a hump right here. I'm hoping that will block out. When I was knitting the front and the back, which are knit back and forth, I alternated skeins every other row, as you would expect. And then once I started joining in the round, I started doing helical knitting. Helical knitting is a technique that allows you to alternate skeins every row or every round. And I'll put a link in the show notes for a tutorial on how to do helical knitting. It's a really great way to even out color differences that you may find in hand dyed skeins, even if they are of the same color. And I think if you can see by this sweater, there is variation within the skeins and probably from skein to skein. But because I'm alternating, you don't get a lot of like pooling or strange flashing. And I think that because of the lighting in here right now, it's probably a bit more obvious than it is in person. So once I had completely finished one of the skeins, I have this much left of the other skein, partly just because of how things worked out. Then I put the bottom on hold, so I put these little stitch markers on my needles. These cute little corgis, and they are from Ginger Snaps. I picked them up at the Prairie Fiber Festival, sorry. So then I put the bottom on hold and I picked up and I knit the neckline. And then I started knitting one of the sleeves. The reason I knit the neckline now is because, number one, it was just kind of an easy thing to pick up and knit. But the next thing is that I would like to be able to try this on. So I will likely put all of these stitches that are on hold, I will probably put on some try it on tubing. And then when I'm ready, I'll try the sweater on to see how long I want the sleeve to be. And if the collar is already knit in place, then I know that that's how the neckline is going to sit when I have the sweater and the sleeve on. Necklines can make a big difference if you're trying on a sweater for sleeve length, because necklines can actually pull everything like up and in, especially if you're adding a substantial amount of ribbing. The ribbing on this sweater is not too much, and I did do an Italian sewn bind off to get a nice clean edge. But now that that's finished, that's one thing I won't have to do at the end, and it will also mean that hopefully I get a more accurate idea of how long to knit my sleeves. So I'm going to knit this sleeve and then the other sleeve. I'm not alternating skeins for these sleeves because I think I can get a whole, well, I'm very confident I can get a whole sleeve out of one skein. So I started this skein to do the neckline and then the sleeve. And then I will use another skein to do the other sleeve. And then whatever's left, I will use for helical knitting in the body to make it as long as I would like. Now this pattern is a little bit of a cropped sweater. So I think again, I'm going to be trying it on, or at least holding it up to myself to see what length I'd like. So I'm gonna hold reserve judgment on how long to make it, depending on personal preference and also how much yarn I have left. So I've already used up almost 2 skeins to get to the body to where it is. And now I'm on my 3rd skein, and I've done the neckline and I've done this much of the sleeve. Now this is quite a deep sleeve. The pattern says that this armhole here will be 16 inches around. So let's see what mine is. I'm just gonna measure across the base of my sleeve, and it is, oh, it's actually looking like 8.5 inches, so about 17 inches around, which is great. That'll give me a nice open sleeve, hopefully. And we'll see how this goes. So this is sort of in an awkward place to show you but I think the color's really nice. And I've been enjoying it because it's very easy knitting. It's very straightforward knitting. The one thing that this pattern does offer is bust darts. Bust darts are often, in this case, a series of short rows that are added just under the fullest part of your bust to add length to the front of your sweater. Now, if you have a bust and your bust is substantial, kind of like mine, you may notice that t-shirts can ride up in the front because your bust sticks out, and so it pulls the fabric of the bottom of your sweater or t-shirt or whatever up. The idea of adding bust darts is that you add a little bit of length in the front that adds some shaping to make your sweater fit a little bit nicer, and also it makes sure that the bottom hem will be a little bit more even. This pattern offers 4 different bust dart variations. So if you measure yourself at your armpits right here, and then at your fullest part of your bust, if the difference is less than 2 inches, I think, you don't do any bust darts. And then there's different sets of bust dart shaping for different size differences. And you can choose whichever one you like. So it goes up to, I think, an 8-inch difference is the largest one in terms of the bust shaping. But you can do whatever, you can choose your own adventure. If you'd like, you can add a few more bust dart rows to add a little bit more length in the front, or fewer if you prefer. And I think this is also something that you could insert into different patterns. The whole idea of adding bust darts so that the front of your sweater sits a little lower. One of the nice things about knitted fabric is that it's stretchy and it allows for some give. So I find that if I'm knitting a sweater that is got a little bit of positive ease and the stretch of the fabric, I have not found that I have needed bust darts. So when I was knitting this sweater, I was interested in trying out this technique to see how I like it. And I'll let you know. You'll find out as I'm knitting this sweater. But the bust darts, let's see if I can show you the side with the bust darts. Okay, the bust darts happen on this side. So I think I've been showing you the back side. This is the back side of the fabric. This is just knitted straight down. And this side has bust darts. They happen just above where my needle is. And I think you can maybe see, let's see if I can zoom in on a bust dart section. There were a series of short rows that happened just kind of here. I think you can kind of see, to add a little bit of shaping in the front of the sweater. So if I go like this, maybe it shows a little bit of that shaping happening. We'll see how it turns out when this bad boy is off all of the needles. It is kind of hard to see right now because of the way that I have my stitches arranged, but I'll let you know what I think of the pattern in general and the bust darts in particular when I've had a chance to try this sweater on. But for now, it's been very enjoyable knitting. It's nice, I find, to just have something stockinette on the needles that I can pick up and work on. I would like to get a bit more progress done. I haven't been able to work on this project as much as I would like. So I'm hoping that in the next couple of weeks I can just sit down maybe with some nice seasonally appropriate cozy Halloween movies and knit a bit more on this. I have one more project on the needles, and that is a pair of socks. These are my autumn socks, my fall socks, my October socks, and as you know, every month I have been pulling out a skein of sock yarn to knit up into a pair of socks. October's yarn was some very fall inspired colors, and I decided to knit up some DRK Everyday socks. This is a sport weight yarn, so I'm using the 52 stitch numbers, and I'm using a 2.75 millimeter needle to create some socks that will fit me. So here is my first sock. This is a Flegel heel, which is a really interesting heel type, and I do like wearing it from the top when it's knit from the toe up. And one of these days I'm going to try and knit a Flegel heel from the top down, because I think that it should work really nicely. It should look like this. So I'm going to give that a try. I'm not sure when. One of these pairs of socks, I'm going to try it. I'm going to knit from the top down. And in fact, I could probably use Andrea Mowry's pattern, but I'll just simply cast on here, do a rib, knit the heel as she recommends, and then do my own toe. So look for that in the, hopefully, next couple of months. I really would like to give that a try. But these are my October socks. This is some yarn, again, from Knit Spin Farms. It's called Autumnal Senescence. I don't really know what that means, but I think the colors are really pretty. I love the purple and this beautiful kind of berry red color, matched with some brighter colors like this limey green. I think they're really pretty. And I think they're fun for this type of year and super cozy. So I have completed the first sock and I have started knitting the second sock. And it looks like this. I've just started the increases for the gusset. So because this sock is knit from the toe up, well, maybe you can see there. At this point, I started doing increases for the gusset. I find this pattern to be very comfortable. In fact, I'm wearing a pair of DRK Everyday socks right now, but they're knit in a fingering weight, so they're a little lighter. I do find them a little comical because when they're not on the needles, I think they look a little bit phallic. I don't know if that's just me. But they're cozy socks. I really enjoy knitting them. And normally I'm a DPN kind of gal, but for some reason for this pattern, I always use magic loop, which I guess is good. It keeps me in practice for knitting magic loop, so I don't forget how to do it. So those are my October socks, and they're coming along nicely. I find them to be very good volleyball watching knitting, or just on the road to my mom's house to eat her turkey knitting. They're very versatile in that way. And that is all I have on my needles for now. And now finally, I have been giving a little bit of thought to the holiday season. And by holiday season, I mean, for me, it's Christmas. But whatever holidays you may celebrate this winter or family get-togethers you may have coming up, I have been thinking a little bit about some things I'd like to knit for gifts, as well as some baking I'd like to do. And I thought maybe I'd take some time right now to give you some idea of what I'm thinking, and then maybe you can give me some ideas about what you're making, and we can share so that we all have some time to get our ducks in the row and get some gifts off the needles if that's something that we choose to do. So as usual, I will be knitting some socks. I will be knitting a pair of socks for my husband. When we were in Italy, one morning we went for a walk because there happened to be a yarn store very close to our hotel. This yarn store was not the kind of yarn store I was used to. It sold a lot of commercial yarns, but everything was behind a desk, so you had to ask for what you wanted. And behind the desk were like 2-story shelves full of all of these amazing yarns. So we went in to have a look, and it was a little intimidating, partly because we'd only just landed in Italy a couple of days before. And so it's not like I was feeling confident in having any conversations about knitting or anything really in Italian. And also it was just a setup and yarns that I was not familiar with. So we went in, we had a look around. It was pretty cool. I didn't feel comfortable asking if I could take pictures because I just was feeling like a fish out of water, for lack of a better term. But I did pick up a ball of yarn. It was something that we definitely have in Canada, and I'm sure you probably have where you are. It's you know what? I'll just grab it just a second. So while this is a yarn that we definitely have in Canada, I have never used it before. And so I picked up a skein to make some socks for my husband, partly because he was very patient in going to all these crazy places with me, and also because he does wear the socks that I make him frequently. So I picked up this Regia Arnie and Carlos Perfect yarn. That is what the socks will look like. And I think they'll be fun. They'll be a fun knit. I haven't knit in commercial self-striping yarn in a while. And I think that this will be a fun project to try because I've never used this Perfect yarn either. So I'll be giving that a try. If you have tips and tricks on how to make these work, let me know. I'm I'm assuming I just knit until I get to the part that's a heel, knit a heel and keep going. Let me know if there's more to it than that. So that is going to be on the needles for my husband. I also have some plans to make some Christmas balls. So little knitted balls that are Christmas decorations. So those will be for some friends and family, I think. And then the last thing I have on the needles or in my gift knitting plan, just a moment. The last gift that I think I would like to knit, and I may be knitting more than one of these, is the Pressed Flowers kerchief. This is actually a free pattern in the Pressed Flowers series. I think it started with a shawl. There's a shawl, a cowl, a vest, a pullover, a cardigan, and now a nice little kerchief. This is a free pattern, and I'm going to be using some yarn from Stash and some yarn that I picked up at a local yarn shop called the Fiber Nook. I will be using some, for the main color, I'm going to use this beautiful John Arbon, what is the name of the yarn? I can't even remember. Yarnadelic, that's what it is. I have an old label, there is a newer label, but it's Yarnadelic. This is a sport weight yarn by John Arbon. It is 100% Falklands Corriedale, and it's a sport weight. This color is called Indigo Dust, but to me it's very like deep, rich green color. So that's going to be my sort of background color. And then the color that all of the little pattern and flowers is going to be in is this spin cycle. I think it's called Every Rose. It was one of the yarns I used when I made my tessellated vest last year, which I'll pop a picture in somewhere here. So this is one of the colors I used, and I think that this, with this as a background color, will make a really pretty little kerchief. Both yarns are quite soft. I did the test, you know, this thing, where you're like, will it be okay around my neck? And I think it will be. I should have lots of the main color. And I'm hoping that after I knit this, I may have enough of this main color to knit another one. And if I do, I think I will. So those are the things that I have planned for my Christmas knits. A pair of socks, some Christmas decorations, a couple of little kerchiefs, and then we'll see. Some other things often land up on my needles. I'm the kind of person who thinks, oh, I'll just knit these few things, and then in the last 2 weeks before Christmas, I decide, you know what, I can totally knit 2 more pairs of socks. So we shall see, and I'm trying to be realistic, but those are the things that I have planned. What do you have planned? Do you have some Christmas knit patterns that you're excited about this year? I would love to hear about them. I'm always on the hunt for something new and exciting. The pressed flowers, I think, will be a lovely little gift, and because it's a free pattern and you can probably use something from your stash, I might suggest you check that out, and I'll leave a link for that pattern in the show notes below. Now, the last thing that I've been thinking about and trying to plan a little bit is my Christmas baking. I always have a few favorites that I like to bake. One of them is some chocolate chip cookies that are a big hit in my family. Another is some gingerbread chocolate chip cookies. In fact, I think they're called chewy gingerbread. My neighbor's driving somewhere, and my dog thought I should know. Chewy gingerbread cookies, chewy chocolate chip gingerbread cookies, something like that. It's a recipe by Martha Stewart, and if I can find it online, I will link it in the show notes below as well. They're very good, a big favorite of my brother-in-law, the farmer, but I like them too, so absolutely I make lots of those ones. Last year I got a new cookbook, which is full of amazing Christmas and other time treats. And the reason I got this was twofold. The recipe author of this book, it comes from the Edmonton area, which is where I live, and she comes from a Ukrainian background, much like I do. So she's included some family favorites, sort of Ukrainian recipes that I loved having as a kid, and I remember my grandmother, my baba, making. And so when I saw this book, I got excited about that section, and then I kept flipping through it, and so many recipes in this book are either ones that I remember seeing in like a church basement somewhere, or or at a Christmas potluck, or they're the kind of recipes that people would make and bring and share. Some of them look like they are like sickly sweet, and some of them are a little bit more like homey and earthy, but there's just so many different options and recipes that I am excited to try out. She has quite a few recipes for sugar cookies, which I've never really been super successful with. She has a lot of different gingerbread cookies as well. There is there's some fruity cookies, there's some minty cookies. I kind of like a variety of flavors, but there is a recipe in here that I am excited to make because it's one of my favorite things to have at Christmas time, and now I need to find it. There's Nanaimo bars. If you are not from Canada and you don't know what a Nanaimo bar is, you should buy this book just to find out because they're delicious. There are recipes for puff wheat squares and different ways to make puff wheat squares so that you can find one that you're successful with. But the one that I'm excited about is butter tart squares. Okay. Besides the fact that the photography in this book is just adorable. Look at that. Butter tart squares are amazing and worth your time. In fact, I think if you look at my last year's videos, I think I did share with you a recipe for butter tart squares. So check it out because they're delicious. So there's so many things in this book that I'm excited to try and add to my Christmas baking repertoire. The other thing that is really fun in this book is that it's called, or I should share it with you so that you can look into it too. It's called A Very Prairie Christmas Bake Book, and it is, again, it's like all of these favorite treats that I remember having as a kid. It is written by Carlin Johnston, whose handle and website are called The Kitchen Magpie. And her husband goes by Mr. Magpie, and his specialty is cocktails. So in this book, he shares many different Christmas cocktails as well as different sort of recipes for mixes or blends that you could make at home. And last year I made his recipe for, I really should be more prepared. There's lots of cocktails in here. If you like a cocktail, I would absolutely give it a try. Oh, here it is. I made it last year. Homemade amaretto. Now, I mean, I'm not a amaretto connoisseur, but I made this stuff and it is so good. It's really good on ice. It's really good with ginger ale, and it's really good in your coffee. So homemade amaretto to give to your friends, a fabulous gift. And this cookbook is something that I'm going to be using a lot this holiday season. And already I can tell that I have used it because it's got some sticky spots on some of the pages and on the cover and on the back. So it must be a good cookbook because I've already used it quite a bit. So those are my thoughts for the holiday season. Do you like to do some baking and to share that baking with your friends and family? I'd love to know what some of your favorite recipes are. I know it seems very early to be thinking about these things, but I'm trying to be organized this year. And I think that if I set myself a schedule for knitting and doing some baking, then I won't feel too rushed when it comes time for December to roll around. And then it always feels like things are a little bit more crazy then. I hope in the next couple of weeks you find time to do the things you like to do. Maybe that's setting a Christmas knitting schedule for yourself, or just having a look through your stash and deciding what you'd like to make yourself for this winter to stay warm and cozy. Maybe you're going to be baking for friends and family or for yourself. There's nothing wrong with any of that. I'd love to know what some of your favorite recipes are for the winter season. I hope that you find time to do the things you like to do. I know I plan on knitting a lot. I'll see you soon. Bye.